And the self-consciousness stood as an island amidst consciousnesses unknown. No awareness of the body consciousness as a separate area of energy. One thought of one's body, but didn't think of one's body thinking of one. The body energy, the body consciousness, was separate, unacknowledged. The head was sort of the vehicle that towed the body around. Not a sense of oneness between mind, self, and body, self. Not an awareness of the two energies working in harmony. Of the spiritual consciousness, there was a spiritual consciousness, but not a consciousness of spirit within the self, rather directed outward. In the early and primitive religions, it was the spirits of the natural elements, primarily, that were the source of spiritual awareness. Someone to praise for bounteous crops and a fresh kill, and someone to blame for the drought and for disaster. That situation has obtained throughout the history of humankind, gradually growing awareness of the spirit as being something that inhabited oneself, but not an awareness of it, of ownership for it. Rather a reflection of God. In that reflection of God was created all sorts of fantasies relating to God's connection with oneself. The self, still lonely and isolated from its brothers and its sisters, still regarded as separate from all things. It is only now in this time of triunity that situation is being healed. That there is an increasing awareness of the spirit as inhabiting the self, of the flesh, of that which is of earth, having its own conscious awareness. Speaking not so the self can understand in traditional terms, not speaking in words or concepts, speaking rather in feelings and in energy flows. Only as the self-consciousness grows greater, grows stronger, the self-consciousness reaches a point in its own awareness of itself and its connection with others, but does not reach the same point of awareness with the spiritual consciousness or with the flesh. It speaks its own language, and energies that do not speak that language cannot be understood. Until that self-consciousness reaches a level of understanding, depth, sensitivity, power, that enables itself to recognize that there are other languages, other indications of consciousness. And that is taking place now as your own energy is perfected. You release your need to control, to separate, to hold, to hide, in a gradual expansion that first allows in the flows and the recognition of the flows of the energy of consciousness, of the three consciousnesses, and then gradually extends itself to allow in the energy of your brothers and of your sisters. And the outcome finally being that you are fully self-conscious in the way that your remote ancestor was not, but also fully integrated with all other consciousnesses that in a different way your common ancestor did have. You are now opening, developing, perfecting your own awareness of who you are, of your nature, of your triune nature. As this process continues within you, you are going to be exposed to many delights, many surprises, And as you are feeling now the labor and birth agony of coming into that oneness, because it shakes you up physically, emotionally, intellectually. It shakes all of the areas as they begin to move into a deeper connection with each other. It's major surgery that's taking place at every level of your being. That major surgery will be ongoing. But as I've said before, gradually you will become more accustomed to this process. Now and in the last year, this process has been greatly accelerated and has reached probably its maximum of difficulty. The difficulty of simply opening up. Simply allowing the process to take place without direction, control, knowledge. This is very difficult for you because what's left? Faith. Faith, enough trust for you to relinquish control over a process that you don't understand and that you don't know the destination of. What's all this going to result in? Letting go of control. You have been taught to prepare for disaster. In time of peace, it is said, prepare for war. Put away some canned goods just in case. Put some money away for a rainy day. The future is feared because unknown. The fact that there is no need now to fear, for a time, is ignored by the old energy, the old consciousness, saying, wait a minute, I'm not in control here, I don't know what's going on, I feel different, my friends, my circumstances, everything about me is changing. Where is the rock to cling to? Where is the comfort? If I am fresh born, where is the loving parent to guide me, to protect me, to comfort me when I fear? Am I to be in this alone? Unprepared? Unready? Without understanding? In the first place, you become your own parent, loving yourself without restraint, trusting in your own protection. In the second place, you interact, interconnect with others who are your brothers and your sisters. You don't need the parent anymore. You don't need the hand to hold, because you are strong within yourself. And you are willing to share that strength with others and share theirs in return. But making that radical left turn can be a frightening and at least a disconcerting experience. And I say to you, in all things, be loving, be forgiving. When you feel yourself feeling frightened, alone, uncertain, don't ignore it and don't say, I shouldn't be feeling like that because I am powerful. The power, that is the power of God's that you share, includes much more than you would attribute to the term power at any time in the past. Infinite compassion is a great element of that power. And the compassion must begin first with the self. Being the ideal parent to yourself. Loving, forgiving, trusting. The fuel for this process of becoming the triune being is the fuel of love. The energy of love is God manifested in energetic form. Love is everything. Love is reality. Around you, you are surrounded by the webs of fear. and they brush against you. You are but fresh born with clear memories of your own fears and of the fearful world and universe that you inhabited. The changes that are coming to you are gradual changes, and you have to look at them every once in a while to notice, yes, the change has taken place, the change is taking place. And so the love that you feel for yourself must be the love for that child, the child that was yourself in the beginning of this incarnation, and that child that lives within you yet, and who is being reborn in midlife. That love that you expend for yourself, you expand to include all others. It is commanded, love one another. Well, it was commanded, but nobody could do it. That was the goal. And now that goal is at hand. To love and to be loved requires trust. All of you who have been in love, all of you who are in love, all of you have the memory of love, but in whom is that memory untainted by the fear or the reality of loss, abandonment, betrayal, the withholding of love, the trivialization of love. All have felt this, and the well of love has been poisoned with mistrust, with bitter experience. To come again in midlife, in this birth, with open arms, accepting, receiving, giving, knowing that your love will not be thrown in your face nor trampled underfoot. How do you do that? First and foremost, again, by loving yourself, by treating yourself with love, with honor, with respect, by not putting yourself down, by not denigrating yourself, your powers, your looks, your mind, any part of you, by recognizing and cheering your own perfection, your beauty, your uniqueness, the reflection that you see in the pool. You must love, not with the love of Narcissus, the love of surfaces, but with the love of the heart, with infinite compassion for all that you have experienced, with infinite hope for all that is to come, with infinite faith that joy will come. To give to each other, to look into each other's eyes and see yourself and love that self. To recognize that you are cells of a gigantic organism, that you are intricately involved with each other, never to be separated, that you are the fingers of the hand. This must be your daily reality as you emerge into wholeness. And there will be many days when it is not your reality. Many days when you are angry, when you are upset, when you are scared, when you don't feel worthy. Because practice will change all things. You're trying to quit a bad habit, deeply ingrained, of self-doubt, self-hatred, of little me-ism. And you have to remind yourself and remind yourself and remind yourself. But gradually all those reminders will stick. As I've said before, this is a process, not an event. It is marked along the way with a number of events, but it's an ongoing process. I say to you, my friends, the time that you are facing is the most enormously changing time in human history. Beginning next year, a fearful acceleration of change, and I say fearful advisedly, as all the old structures are broken down, new ones tested, tried, experimented with. Gradually the awakening of the planet and of the race, as in your own awakening, and you know the struggles and the wars that have been fought within you. This will be reflected on a planet-wide basis. The process begun in you has begun in all humanity. The process that is completing itself in you will soon complete itself in all humanity. But oh, my friends, that interim is going to be interesting. You are preparing for it now. Your emerging triunity will click into useful place just the time it's needed. And I say to you, despite the upsets, revel in this time. You'll look back at it with the affection you reserve for school days. You might have been miserable at the time, but in afterthought you look back and you say, oh, those were the most wonderful years. The years of awakening. Your life is not going to be joyless or cheerless at all, but it's going to be lived on a different level than you've lived up until this time, with a different kind of appreciation for the events of change and growth, with a higher mind appreciation of what is taking place in human development. You will be children and the wise elders all at once. The helpless days of infancy behind you. Heir to the infinite wisdom of the spiritual self. The infinite vitality of the physical self. And the infinite variety of the mental self. So much to explore. The new dimensions of a new self, more than tripled by its change. The dawning of a brand new day. I speak this now because of the timing of this present moment. When you begin to realize the benefits of the process you have undergone. When you begin to realize your power as it is linked with God. It is not comparable to your previous notions of power. It is not temporal, material power. It is God power. The power to live at ease and at one, unknowing of the future, in perfect and sublime trust that all will open before you that you require for your joy, for your satisfaction. All of your needs met. All of your true desires fulfilled. Without worry, without anxiety, without anticipation. No longer following in your own footprints, but striking out with courage in new directions. But courage that is not shaking in the boots courage, I'm going to do it anyway courage. Courage born of faith. Calm, confident, aware, and yet able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. This pathway of triunity you have set foot on, and you will not take your feet off of that path. Nothing will throw you off. You will not stumble. You will not fall. The less you worry, the easier the passage is, because you will recognize again and again until you finally learn it, that you will not stumble. You will not fall. You will not fail. You have gone through the tests. You have passed all the examinations. You are ready. You are the graduate starting a brave new career, fully competent, able as you have never been able in the past, to wear this strength and this courage, this wisdom and this joy, as you would wear a beautiful cloak, unafraid, with nothing to fear, gazing with wonder at the toppling structures around you, knowing you will not be crushed by their fall, knowing that your path is as clear and as clean and as open to you as if there were no toppling structures around you. This is the reward. And for a people so long immersed in thoughts of punishment, to receive reward is at first puzzling. Reward? You mean it's not going to be hard like this? Life is not going to be suffering? Life is not going to be brief highs followed by long lows? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And it's hard to learn. Hard to give in and hard to relax. Takes a lot of practice. You don't have to hunch your shoulders and be ready to ward off the next blow. The blow will not arrive. The blow will not be sent. This is not a life opening to you that is a life of grim duty, where you say, well, I must be the pillar of strength that supports all during this massive time of change. Not at all. Not at all. This is not the age of martyrdom. That's not what this is about. You will be supporting those who will be supporting you. And you will not say, so long, it's been good to know you, to those who are going down with the ship. But you will recognize in your wisdom, in your growing understanding, that no one will be lost, but that some cannot be saved at this time. And that is not your work. You are not to become a nation or a world of social workers. There may be useful work for you within that field, but that's not your duty. Your duty is you and your brothers and your sisters. Your duty is to grow. Your duty is to enjoy. Your duty is to expand. And none of it is duty, because it's all a privilege and a pleasure. You've earned it. You've received it. You have released guilt, fear, thoughts of unworthiness. Deny them and deny them whenever they come. Take a look at them and say, go away. You're not real to me anymore. You're a spook. You're a figment of my imagination. You're a memory, a fading dream. You are not little. You are not weak. You are not unworthy. You are not lazy. You are not deceitful. You are none of these negative things. And these old habits will fall from you. Why? Because there's nothing to support them anymore. They're like the scabs on a healed sore. One flick. 2 flicks. 3, 4. But soon they're gone. Because the healing is real. And that which needed healing was of fear, therefore false, therefore illusion. You are waking up from a long dream. A dream of weakness, a dream of guilt, a dream of pain. I've said before, and I say again, take this time, take all time, and play with it. Play games with it. encourage your expansion and your recognition of that expansion in every way. Through enjoying yourself, through experimenting with your psychic spiritual abilities, through joining one with another and feeling your strength grow tenfold with every unification achieved between you and another. Feel the nurture that is exchanged between you without the barriers of jealousy and fear. If I show myself to be weak, I'll be killed. That was the early lesson. Long time to get rid of that lesson. You cannot show yourself to be weak. You can only show yourself to be human. And to be human in this time is to be strong. Don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid of any dark corners. Every human being has dark corners. You wouldn't be living on earth if you didn't in this time and in this place. The dark corners need to be loved as much or more as those bright, shining areas within you. All will change to light and to love, because that is the reality. But you have suffered because you have not been nurtured. You have suffered because you have denied the dark corners of yourself in your own mind, because you've been afraid to look at them, to bring them out into the light, because you've been ashamed. Love yourself in every aspect without blaming yourself or blaming others. Recognize that you are healing. Recognize that where you have been deluded, creating those fear-clouded corners in your life, the delusion is fading. Love the child who became so frightened that his and her fears were buried and pushed off into the corner, too big, too scary to look at, to acknowledge. Let go of the imperfect way you have been raised in this life and in the lives that preceded this life. All have seen through a glass darkly. All have fallen short of the glory of God. All exist for each other's nurturance and growth. And the obstacles that have been placed before you are just the stimuli that you have needed to motivate you to heal. There are none to blame. This is a system of education and growth on all levels. And some of your greatest teachers have been those who put the greatest obstacles before you. Trust the entire process that has created and produced you. Don't waste your energy on vain regret. Let the past slide away behind you without notice. Be alive in this present moment with cheerful anticipation of the future as it unfolds. That's the reality. That's not living in a pink cloud. That's not avoidance. That's saying, what has been is over. I am new. I am renewed. I have only compassion for those I have thought to be my enemies. I have only love for myself, for my journey, for my unfolding. It is because of all of these things that we leave you now, if leave is the word. You are integrating through your love the three aspects of yourself, and so is Paul. You need each other to reflect the truth to you. You don't need a teacher. You are teachers. You don't need a guru. You are gurus. You don't need to know all of the details of heaven and earth, because you now have faith that you will learn all that you need to learn and see all that you need to see, and that there will be nothing that you need to fear. Share with each other. Teach each other with love, with understanding. In the next 6 months, there's going to be enormous acceleration of change in you, in your lives. It's going to be variously manifested depending on what your true desires are. But this is the time of dreams come true, of the true self manifesting itself, of your letting go of the final vestiges of the fear, the loss, the betrayal, all that you have experienced in a negative vein. Now you can allow to flow away from you into the past, where it belongs. Paul must speak of Paul's plans. I, Plautus, exist on many levels as a vital part of Paul, but also as the father of many. Complete within Paul, complete in the wider reality, complete in many dimensions of time and of space. All of you have Plautus within you, the voice that is speaking more clearly to you every day, the consciousness of spirit that is integrating into the self-consciousness and the body consciousness, rendering all truly alive, one in triunity. Let go of the hand. You are old enough to cross the street by yourself. And so I say to you, one and all, Ave atque vale. Hail and farewell.
Can we ask personal ones?
You can ask whatever you like.
Lynette asked specifically that I ask you about what she's going through right now. She and Clark officially broke up, and she's having a really hard time dealing with that and getting through this period, even though she really knows it's for the best. But she asked if you comment.
Yes, get through it a day at a time. Don't even ask what's the overall meaning of this, why is this happening, all of the unanswerable questions. It's time that for her to deal with the day as the day, not to brood, not to think about what could have been and what was and what might have been, to be one with the moment, which is not to avoid the feelings, but not to dwell in them and not to project them into the future. Moment by moment. This is going to pass, and it's going to pass fairly quickly. For one thing, there are many elements in her life that are being activated, and she's going to be too busy to spend a lot of time moaning and groaning about this. It's if she chooses not to self-dramatize it, she'll be able to assimilate it well, and it won't be stuffing it. It'll be recognizing that this is an important experience, and this moving apart is just as important. That everything is in its place, and the time is right.
In March, when you met with a whole group of them, you had said for her birth year was romance, romance, romance. Do you see that coming yet?
Yes. 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 Especially moving toward Christmas time.
When Plautus mentioned that we become more aware of our triunity, is this something that is going to really be noticeable or sort of noticeable?
Well, it depends on how closely you look at it. If you look at it objectively, if you stand away from yourself, then you're going to see it more clearly. If you're just inside yourself, you're not going to see it as clearly because it's like all change. You know, it's like being a kid and not recognizing that you've grown but that your shoes don't fit anymore. And which is a very rough analogy, because what's happening is that separate consciousnesses, two of which you were only vaguely aware of, are merging with the consciousness that had been your virtually only awareness, the self-consciousness, the ego consciousness. And as that merging continues, as that process goes on, it's going to be your self, that is going to be magnified terrifically. You may not think of it as the triunity. You're just going to think, I don't get so confused anymore. I'm not so worried about things anymore. I seem more competent to deal with the events of life. It's not going to be a sudden Shazam and you change costumes and you're a superhero. It's incremental, but it's all of the elements that were negative recede farther and farther into the past, become less and less a part of your present reality, and that's how you're going to notice it. Is that you're just better at what you do, and things are better in general, and you feel better, and et cetera, et cetera.
I have somebody that has been giving me some advice on some financial investments, and Plautus had mentioned that I would be meeting someone that might help me with this back in the spring. And is this someone that I should take their advice on?
What I'm seeing is it won't even be a question. That their advice will conform so closely to your own intuition that it'll seem like you're following your own advice. You know, there won't be that, I'm going to take the jump and trust this person. And yes, I still see that. In fact, I would expect for all of you that beginning now, almost literally now, areas that have been blocked, that have been slow to develop, are going to be catching up with your desires now, and that you are more ready. A lot of you, perhaps most of you, have been going through in the last few months, and perhaps with even greater poignancy in the last few weeks, taking a look at issues that you thought you'd licked, childhood stuff coming up, parent stuff, the deep things that you thought you'd gotten through. And so will you believe me if I tell you now you have? Because the processing that was needed, and you know, like Plautus says, it's not going to disappear like magic. It is going to disappear as a factor before it disappears as a memory. And that's going to happen. I mean, that is happening now. And so matters that have been held in abeyance have been held in abeyance because for one reason or another, you weren't ready for whatever it was. Ready to take the challenge, ready to see what could be seen. You know, what this triunity does is make you so much more discerning. As intuition links with mind, as wisdom sort of oversees the whole thing, you find, and you don't notice it because it's you know, it's just me. I look in the mirror, it's the same person. But what happens is that your decisions are better, and things come together for you better because you're hearing, seeing, sensing more, and understanding yourself better, so that what you're seeing, hearing, and sensing can be translated into action, appropriate action. So, as I say, if there's been a log jam, you can expect the logs to start rolling over these next months, right away, soon.
I have a question about the business stuff I'm doing with Randy. Do you see a man named Butch Vig as somebody that would be helpful?
Yes. Yes. Person of considerable power, somebody that you need to keep your eyes open, trust your own intuition. It's not someone you should just turn everything over to, but who can be helpful by using his power and expertise, but being clear about boundaries.
So you see him as being open to talking to me?
I think so, yes. He's certainly a potential source of support.
Thanks. I have a niece who is looking for some direction in terms of her career. She's fairly young. Do you see anything?
First name?
Italia. Tally.
What's her age?
She's 18.
Is she dramatic? She seems as though she deals with life in a dramatic way.
Artistic.
All right, artistic. That she sees things in that, I'll say dramatic again, but dramatic and impressionistic style that an artist does. I think she needs to be aware that it's important for her not to be stuffed into a square hole as she is a round peg. That it is important for her to follow her heart's desire, no matter where it leads, rather than to make choices out of security needs, or, even worse, dictated by someone else. She needs to trust her choices, and I believe that they will be non-traditional in many cases. And I would encourage that.
As we continue to develop our talents, my assumption is that lots of us will be able to channel per se with each other, as some of us are already doing. But I've noticed that some people are just naturally better at like talking about earth changes, and others are better about talking about people.
Of course, you're not clones. So everybody's going to have their own specialty. Everybody's going to have some vibration that they respond to with greater clarity than other vibrations. When you speak of channeling now,
what's a better word for that?
Well, no, it's fine. It doesn't matter what's in a name. But you need to be clear about it yourself, that you are not, as I have been with Plautus, taking your spiritual energy and giving it a voice. You're not separating a part of yourself. You may be speaking from the higher self level, but as an integrating person. So it's important to recognize that, so you don't get all skitsy about it. That is why, because you're not interchangeable parts, you're interactive parts, you and the people that you come in contact with. And you'll be drawn together for reasons that you may not consciously be aware of, but the outcome is that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and that the gift that you contribute will be matched by the gift someone else contributes, and you put all the gifts together, and you've got something quite marvelous. And of course, some are going to be talking about this, and some about this, and some of their insight is going to be this. What's going to happen is that gradually you're not going to need to ritualize it. You're going to trust yourself and each other well enough so that it will be an interaction like advice giving is today. Well, most advice giving over the history of human beings is somebody's estimate of what's best for him, and then applying it to you. And with the best will in the world, but it's very subjective. And so it's fine now to put it in a sort of ritualized context of channeling, because it gives you more security that this is indeed the voice of the spirit and not just some wild idea of your own. But gradually you won't need to do that. But enjoy it. It's worthwhile.
I have a friend named Bob. What do you see in the future for us? Anything?
There's a good deal of good feeling here, but there's also a wall. There's a barrier. And you're reaching over the barrier. But the barrier has to be dealt with. I feel that the high energy connects pretty well, and perhaps the lower chakras are what's being protected here.
Do you see it as a positive relationship? Really?
I think it has the potential of being a positive relationship, assuming that you both deal with the barrier issues.
Well, my father's having really difficult times, and my sister and I really don't know how to tackle He's chaining up his refrigerator. He's doing things. So.
Hey, he's what? I'm sorry.
He chained up his refrigerator now, and he won't go into a nursing home, and we don't really know how to help him. What we can do for him.
You need to step in. He is not the person that you think of when you say, my father. That's no longer the case. He's not competent to make choices for himself. You need to make those choices and to make them fearlessly and knowing you're making them out of love and out of necessity. You'll just watch him disintegrate in front of you. And you need to step in and be the parent in this role. I think you know that.
But he refuses to do anything that we ask him to do.
Well, you may have to get power of attorney. I mean, you may have to bring it to that because he's not going to listen to reason because reason isn't connecting with him. But the outcome, it's painful. I'm not going to soft pedal that. It's a painful situation. You'll deal with it better now than you would have been able to in the past, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. But the outcome is vital. Don't feel any guilt about this. You are doing what is necessary. You are being the parent to the child, acting for his own protection and well-being. And as the parent must trust himself to act in the child's best interest, so must you trust yourself in this situation.
Do you feel this is something that there's 6 brothers and sisters that we should all do together?
Well, ideally, if you can reach an accord together, yes. But whoever is the most responsible is finally, if you can't do it together, then it must be done separately. But to do otherwise is really to neglect him in his hour of need. He may say no, 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 but he's helpless. Increasingly, this is accelerating.
He's gone through some real devastation in his life. What are you seeing up ahead for him?
What's his name?
Lee.
He's broken. Not unmendable. But does he spend a lot of time alone or inside his head? He really needs perhaps a more active life that doesn't give him so much time for brooding and navel contemplating. It doesn't help him. He'd be better off out chopping wood, working off that energy in a physicality.
Seems to be moving in a spiritual direction. Is that a good direction for him to go right now?
Well, yeah. It's always a good direction to go. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can certainly screw it up. But the desire is legitimate. I think he needs a lot more grounding before he's going to find the appropriate spiritual expression and understanding. That's why I say, be outdoors, dig in the earth, tire himself physically, because he's way too much in his head.
My brother is involved with someone that my sister and I feel is a very unhealthy person, and my parents refuse to see it. And we really don't know how to suggest things to my brother without his feeling that we're interfering with his life. And it's real hard to be neutral on the subject, even though we both live at a physical distance from all of them. Do you have any thoughts?
How old is your brother?
Old enough to know better, 43. And she's much younger.
Yeah, but you are interfering. I mean, I don't want to be harsh about it, but I mean, his perception would be accurate. People need to be free to make their choices, even if in your eyes they seem to be wrong choices. All you can do, and I don't mean shut up. I mean, feel free to offer your advice and your input, but then let it be. If he chooses not to follow it, that's his privilege and his right. Don't step over into his yard. looking at the situation, I'd say it's not exactly as you see it. That when I look at it, I don't see the disaster or a bad situation. It's kind of complicated, but it's without judging it bad, good, I'd say it's not out of place.
I have a question about a relationship with a friend named Davies. She lives in Madison. I'm going to see her next weekend.
You have a question about her?
Yeah, well, I'm just curious about our relationship. We've known each other for a long time.
Is she very free with her advice?
Probably, yeah.
She seems to have strong attitudes and sort of a commanding presence.
Right. I can do that pretty well back, so.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't feel that you're outnumbered here. She's got a lot of energy, but she's very opinionated, and as long as you're okay with not being overly influenced by her opinion, it's a good connection, good friendship, and more fun than your days in the Army with her.
Oh.
Because that's how this connection started out, as Army buddies. And doing a bit of adventuring together, more adventuring than war. It was more carousing and
I think we still kind of do that.
yeah, well, I'm sure the energy is still there.
Especially we're going to Madison.
Yeah, good buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks. One of the fear issues with the crumbling of society as we know it is the fear of lack of money, lack of funds. And I know that's not just my issue, but practically everybody I've talked to. Do you have any advice on like people who are retiring and want to put their...
Well, I think what's going to happen as a practical result of things like the banking system going down and this recession that we can't seem to pull out of. We can't pull out of it because the energy isn't there. The situation has fundamentally changed from the way it's been in the past. And I think what's going to happen is, don't worry about it, you'll be okay. But on a more practical level, well, it couldn't be more practical, but on another level, I think that people are going to, and I'm speaking of people like you, are going to be living in more communal kinds of settings. As you come closer together and understand each other better, communal living is generally, in the long run, disastrous. It might be great for a while, but then the individual differences and suspicions and fears and conflicts and so forth tear down the structure, even in family communal situations. But I think as you grow more understanding, compassionate, wise, et cetera, and connecting with each other, that a more stable and beneficent communal kind of living is going to become viable. And you mentioned specifically older people, and I think that's going to be true there too, where it's going to be self-help. It's going to be caring for each other, as well as integrating older citizens into communal situations with people of all ages. It's a larger family, I think, that is involved here, not just the blood family, but having all the characteristics of aunts and uncles and grandparents and parents and children and so forth, but on a larger scale.
So the need to invest and be self-sufficient isn't going to be so...
It's not going to work. I mean, it's just not going to work because the money's going to be devalued and eaten up by taxes and by inflation and deflation, and place not your faith in those scraps of green paper because they don't stand for anything.
I
I'm going to be working with a new family. Both the husband and wife are obstetricians and have a little boy, Simon. Their name is Kaplan. And I felt like my higher power took me into the family. Is there something that I can take with me, or is there some purpose?
Yes, there is purpose. I'm not going to say to you much about it, because it's going to be a matter not of anything you can plan or a program or anything, but how you energetically fit into that combination of energies. I think at one level, you and the wife are going to have a special connection. And I think you're going to be of help in her changing her views and expanding her views. It looks like a blossom coming.
I felt like when I took the job that I was just sort of directed to be there for some reason.
Yes, I think that's true.
Is now the time to ask about future channeling plans?
Well, now is the first possible time to ask about future channeling plans, because I didn't have a clue. And I'm still not 100% sure, because there are factors that I just haven't felt, integrated into. I'm not going to quit doing it. As long as I can do it, and I'm good at it, I want to keep doing it. I just don't want to be dependent on it. I don't want it to get in the way of other things. A lot of my problems with channeling were related to channeling Plautus, and for the reasons that he and I have both told you about. So as that integration progresses, at this point I'm feeling, well, I'm not particularly interested in lecturing, but I'm more interested in this kind of a question, answer, searching. I don't know what form it's going to take, but so all I can say to people who might want a reading is give me a call and see what I say.
Well, you talked about maybe doing once a month at my house. Are you still interested in that?
Yeah, but not a lecture, but an interchange, so we all grow from it. Maybe there's a transition period where I can be helpful as a sort of ringleader, and
so more interchange between more people is kind of I like that.
That's worth exploring.
I agree.
Never stops.
Right.
So, anybody?
I just have one thing.
I knew it was going to be you.
In my business, I do training, and I'm finding more and more we're going inside the self in terms of developing people in businesses, and I've just gotten the feeling that this is the direction, the new direction, in the new movement towards getting to the masses with feelings of self-empowerment and going to more holistic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting extremely strong in the business arenas. Do you see that as a direction, a purposeful direction?
Absolutely. It's not going to always catch fire with everybody. You can do that process and try to build a sense of empowerment and so forth. Some people aren't ready for it and won't be ready for it in this incarnation, but that doesn't make it a bad tactic. So you cast the net, and you're going to get a lot of people who will grow and benefit from that approach, as will the society as a whole. It's like Plautus has said, flowers growing on the battlefield while the battle is in progress. So these new directions formed by insights allowed to us by the expansion of personal and group consciousness. All of these things are going to be growing and growing in the business world and in all aspects of human endeavor. And yes, that's a great way of helping to open people and understand each other.
Is there enough emphasis, though, Paul, on the understanding part of it and not just more friction between groups that are hollering one for one thing and one for
Oh,
another?
yeah, there's going to be plenty of that for a while. The outcome is going to be what we're all looking for toward. But there are a lot of people who seem to be espousing the, quote, right causes, who are as totalitarian as anybody can possibly be. It doesn't mean that all of the causes that you believe in are inhabited exclusively by people who are like you. Far from it. Far from it. But there will be a winnowing, and there will be a process by which those who genuinely wish to work cooperatively and using the balance that comes with higher wisdom. And most of these groups that you're thinking of are characterized by their imbalance, by seeing a corner of the picture, a piece of the puzzle, and focusing on that as though it were the whole thing. And that's a sign of limited consciousness, not expanded consciousness.
Paul, I had a question about my business, my private practice. I'm working on my logo for my cards and my announcement, and I've sort of landed on the name Island View Counseling Services. Does that have a good feel to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't light up the sky for me, but it sounds solid. Okay. I think it would be serviceable for you.
Okay. Would you see November is kind of a good time to be keeping an eye?
Anytime now, from now on.
Okay.
Yeah. Just trust that process, that the timing is working for you and for when you open that as well as for everybody else.
No more Mercury retrogrades.
Well, we'll still have those. We're still living on Earth. And there'll be times that things will be bumpy, but you don't have to be afraid of them or dodge them. If you choose to learn about astrology, for example, then you can use those changing energies in a positive way and never be blocked by them. But even if you choose not to learn in detail, if you feel there is, you're working in a time and you're feeling the opposition, you can't get a hold of anybody on the phone and the plans aren't coming, then you do what does work for you then. And you can make plans for the future, and you can work and put your emphasis and your focus on areas that are growing corn and are moving along. So you really need not to be programmatic, but rather trust your instincts, your intuition, and your ability to move fast on your feet.
Is there any information you could give me concerning my kids right now, Emily or Skip? That would be...
Say the names again?
Emily or Skip.
Okay.
That would be beneficial at this time.
Emily, big growth spurt. She's going to be... How old is she?
She will be 11.
She'll be a strong lady. Knows what she wants. I'd say with her, do you have custody or?
No, we're in joint custody actually.
Pretty much give her her head. She's you don't want to put a saddle or a bridle on her. Let her trust her and let her gallop off in all directions, even if you think, oh, that's not the direction I had in mind. Or she's basically stable, but she's infinitely curious, but very strong. And the boy's name?
Skip.
How old is he?
7, he will be 8. Both their birthdays are in November. So.
This has been kind of a tough year for him. Insecurities. This next birth year is going to be one of gradual expansion for him, and new sense of himself, being secure in himself, becoming one of the big kids instead of a little kid. Is there anything specific you want?
Yeah, well, he's one that's very inquisitive, and his mind is...
He's probably going to be a scientist.
Yeah, it's wide open and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And he asks questions about the universe and all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
he's not as forceful and expansive as she is. He'd work with a microscope, and she'd work with a loudspeaker. Okay.
Does spring wick have a better ring than Atlantis?
No, I think I agree with David that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's my turn to draw this reading to a close, and thank you for your attention, and see you all around and about.
Thank you.